Okay, so the recording is started now. And if you would just introduce yourself, your name and your age and what today's date is.
Very well, Bob. My name is Al Metzger. I am 75 years old, and today is February 8th, 2024.
Great. And you received the release form and you agree to us being able to use that and share it with the public in DePaul.
Absolutely.
Great. So if you could just start out by saying a little bit about your family, where you grew up, brothers and sisters, etc., your life before Angry.
Very good. Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and stayed there until I was 11. At that point in time, I had a younger brother, just 1 year younger, and then an even younger brother that was 8 years younger than that. We lived in Brooklyn until I was 11 when we were accepted to move into the projects, New York City Housing Authority in Queens, where I stayed until I was 18. Well, bobbling in and out of trouble with the law, but graduating from high school, I left there and enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1966. Served in Vietnam. When I returned from overseas, I was stationed in Glenview, Illinois. That's how I got to Chicago. When I got stationed there, they were so busy trying to get the Marines that were reserved to go active duty so they could send them to Vietnam. That pissed me off right away, Bob. So I
Why? Why
started,
did why did that piss you off?
well, because by the time I came home from Vietnam, I had seen so many times that our approach was wrong. For instance, Khe Sanh, Vietnam, a battle that raged for a long time. 5,000 Marines held off 15,000 enemy. We supported them all we could. And when the battle was over, we simply moved the Marines off the hill and abandoned it back to the enemy. That started me thinking this whole process is wrong. And if there's one thing I can do when I get home is take every step possible to make sure that no more guys go, which became my attitude while I was out at Glenview. We met some guys from Vietnam Veterans Against the War, got involved, started making actions on the base.
Like what
They
what kind of
decided to threaten.
what kind of actions?
Oh, well, for instance, on the day of our greatest achievement, the commandant of the Marine Corps was coming to Glenview to visit, and we made a big stink in the drill hall where we were being assembled. Those of us, when I came back, they were trying to get the reserves shipped over, so they told all of us we could go live in town. All of us city guys promptly went into Chicago and got apartments. And then we met the VVAW guys and we started doing anything we could to aggravate them. If they wanted an inspection, we showed up with the wrong uniform. When they collected us all in the drill hall for this big day of the commandant, we raised hell and messed up people's uniforms and threw stuff all over the place. They promptly told us, well, you guys are going to jail. So in their infinite wisdom, they said, get your uniform squared away and come back tomorrow so we can lock you up. Well, that's when I went to Canada. So I left for Canada. As fast as I got to Canada, Nixon bombed Cambodia, which made me think, well, you're a coward. If you're hiding up here, you're not doing a damn thing to fix it. So I came back into the country where I found this commune of hippies in upstate New York that were doing light shows. So I did light shows for a summer. Then I found out from somebody else, Fritz, who you know well, that Shirley, my girlfriend, was pregnant. So I figured that's my responsibility. Doesn't matter what happens, I got to go back to Chicago now. So I went to Chicago, hit around in a bunch of different places. Shirley got more and more pregnant with Hope. And finally, we got in touch with, if you remember, Andy Heiken, used to be associated with the Chicago area military project. He hooked me up with an attorney so that I could turn myself in, get all the charges dropped off of Shirley for her abetting and all this other crap, and then just go to jail, have my trial, and get out. It was amazing. When that long-haired civilian lawyer came into the military court, they all freaked out. The next thing we know, I'm kind of convicted, but I'm kind of not. Then they decide they'll let me sign for what was at that time an undesirable discharge. Mark Kadish was my lawyer. He said, just sign the goddamn thing and get out, no matter what happens. So I did. And it took us 3 months in the courts. I got my honorable discharge. By that time, I was starting to know Mark Mardell and Jeff Resnick.
And how did you start to know them?
Well, once I was a legal guy, we kind of had a head shop up in by Lawrence Avenue, the old, what we used to call Greektown in Chicago. And Mark and Jeff were from that neighborhood. They started coming in with their angry buttons and helping us get more and more upset. And pretty soon we were going to every Rising Up Angry function we could find.
Like what kind of functions?
Oh, well, starting out with the first People's Dance that happened while I was in Chicago, and we just loved it. Then we started volunteering to be at demonstrations, to be at events. At the time, there was the daycare center at Fritzy. That's where Hope went. I worked in, once I was getting more involved in Rising Up Angry, I was employed at Schwinn Bicycle, so we started trying to organize the factory. We indeed eventually held off the United Auto Workers because they were going out to organize anybody with wheels, and made the management at Schwinn, plus most of the employees, see that having our own employee committee and using that as a means, backed up by the National Labor Relations Board, to make sure we had no irregularities and that we got the best deal possible. So that worked out well. I was also in the GI Vets Collective because I was home from Vietnam.
And what was
And generally, I just tried to help anywhere I could.
Yeah, what was the GI Vets Collective and what did it do?
Well, we worked with both veterans, like myself at the time, and active duty GIs.
Doing what?
Well, we would, one, try to get them to resist taking orders and going to Vietnam. We would, if they decided they were going to go underground, we would help and assist in whatever they did. If it was a matter of legal processes, we had lawyers from the legal program, and we had still access to the Chicago area military project. So we got some, we had Howie King, who we named Rob Farmer, and I think we hid him for a couple of years. But that was the kind of stuff we were doing. And at the factory, we were just constantly agitating for people to become more conscious, to resist the war, gang members to stop fighting, another big focus of Rising Up Angry. And generally learning about what a new life I could have. It was very good for him.
And what kind of, talk a little bit about the outreach to the active duty GIs.
Well, we tried to sneak any place we could get and make sure that we could leaflet the different bases and try and pull guys together. there was an awful lot of guys that were in the military that were coming back to Chicago for leave, for other reasons. If we could find them, we were trying as hard as we could to put them in the anti-war movement and move them towards the new society that we envisioned at the time.
And what was motivating you to stay involved in this? It sounds like it was for a while.
Well, I really believed that it took the people to kind of make Vietnam go away, but that there was a lot left that needed work done. There was discrimination. Employers were out of hand. Landlords were out of hand. The wealth wasn't being distributed. Everything I felt needed to change. And having been through my own experience, I felt empowered. I was surrounded by everybody else and rising up angry. I thought we could do anything we wanted to do.
And what were some of the, looking back now, were there any particular events or experiences that really helped, develop that feeling in you?
Well, it all started with my own experience in Vietnam. But then when I realized I was back home and the population at large really had no stomach for us. They wished we would just go away. But among the people in and around Rising Up Angry, I was accepted. I was nurtured. Very honestly, my resistance to the war, I think, helped me get by relatively unscathed in terms of my own mental condition.
Can you talk about that a little more, what you mean by that, for those people who haven't been at war?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't begin to share details, but I would say that from my own perspective, as a 19-year-old kid experiencing all that blood and gore and being constantly in and out of potentially life-ending situations and realizing that there wasn't a fundamentally sound reason we were doing it. That really, and just the thought of coming home. Here, I'll tell you a little story, Bob. And everybody that served in Vietnam has this story. On the day that you're leaving, they're getting the airplanes on and off the ground so fast that they're literally loading them as they're unloading them. And you're maybe 2 years, in my own case, I was 22 months older than when I had gotten off that airplane. And you realize we're a bunch of beat up old men getting on this airplane, and there's a bunch of America's prized youth getting off of it. You could just see that difference. We're kids now, tired old men going home. And I think I might have stayed tired and become a little unhinged if I hadn't found a way to express myself. And the combination of Vietnam Veterans Against the War and Rising Up Angry, and then as the war ended, continuing to have the support of Rising Up Angry and knowing that I was doing something that made a difference, knowing that I was curing myself at the same time that I was repaying this horrible debt. If you go through war and you don't come home thinking you have a debt to humanity, then I don't know where your head's going to go. That's my story, Bob. That's how that went.
And so, since you left Rising Up Angry, what have you been doing in your life? And do you think that Rising Up Angry had any influence on what you've been doing since then? And like, where do you live now and stuff?
Rising Up Angry has influenced every day of my life since. It's empowered me to think I don't have to put up with a lot of people's crap. And at the same time, it's made me know that there isn't a circumstance that can't be reasoned out, figured out, and worked on with good, solid effort. What I learned in Rising Up Angry that was huge was criticism and self-criticism. And that was amazing to me because it allowed me to get my head around my own experience and then learn how to share me with others. Shortly after Rising Up Angry, I was up in Wisconsin for a while making wood stoves with Jim Russell, and Fritz was around there for a while. And then I found my way into working with adults with disabilities. I did that until I was 40. I loved it. It was great. We took people everybody thought were uh, basically incapable of any achievement, and then showed that by good work and a tireless effort, we could have people with a 70 IQ earning and exceeding the minimum wage, which nobody thought of. And at the same time, finding the beauty of work, finding the realization that you can be part of something other than just your disability. Then when I turned 40, I was married to Lisa, my current wife, and we were having a conversation, and it was like, well, I know you like what you do, but you got to go get a real job someday. So we were down here in Tampa, and I got a job in telephone sales. It's like 1989. They had just deregulated all of telecommunications in 1987. So we were just running around selling everything to everybody. And I had a good time and made a lot of money. But then that business broke down and I was just back on my own. And pretty much that ended in around 2005. And shortly after that, Lisa started becoming disabled. My work in the telephone business went away because now it's a card and a computer and a phone you can hold in your hand and do all these things that you could never do when I worked in the phone business. To have this video call, we would have to strap together three T1s, 1.5 megabits of data. You had to strap three of them together to get your voice where it looks like, like a Chinese movie. Their voice is going and it comes out at a different time. But after that, I've kind of been at home since 2011 to being caregiver for Lisa. We sold our house, moved into a little apartment, and enjoying retirement now, Bob.
Great. And are you still in touch with any of the people that you knew in Angry?
Well, off and on. My first wife, Shirley's down here now with her husband, John. I talk to Fritz all the time, but
Right.
he's dead. I don't know if you remember my Marine Corps buddy, Carmelo, who was around the edges, but never kind of jumped in full time with the rest of us. But I speak to him every week.
Oh, great. And he's still
Yeah.
in Chicago, right?
Yes. Yes. He's on the west side now. He got pinched the same time we did, 2008, 2009. His job went and his house went away. Same thing happened to Lisa and I.
Wow.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember Tom Benton
I
and
don't
his
think I do.
wife, Eva. They were kind of peripheral. They're down here now, too. I don't see much of them. Shirley's politics have wandered far to the right.
So, thinking back, there's a lot of young people that are in motion now trying to improve the country. Is there any lesson, anything that you learned, any advice? Even though as young people, they probably wouldn't ask for it, but if you were giving young people advice that wanted to build a movement to change the country, what would that advice be?
I would say to pick good issues. The Rising Up Angry model. We're going to take care of your kids. We're not going to take care of your dope problem or your divorce, but any other legal issues you got, we can help with.